in the morning at 7:30.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Speakers and Leaders Hour. I'm your host, Dave Wilkins, and this is the program that comes into your home once a month on the first Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. live here at the Allen County Public Library. And we have a very special program tonight. Of course, we always talk about Toastmasters, and part of the time we talk about parliamentary procedure. But tonight we're going to give the whole program over to the Toastmaster experience. And in fact, it's going to be a new experience. So if you're Toastmasters out there and you're watching, you may want to call a little later on. Or if you have friends who are Toastmasters, you might want to call them and have them to tune in to Cable Channel 57 or Verizon 27. We are on the air live for 1 hour tonight, and that number is 422-3902. 422-3902. And you can call in anytime during the evening. As I said, we're giving the whole program over to the Toastmaster experience, and we have something new in Toastmasters, something called Pathways, and you're going to hear more about that in just a few minutes. With me here in the studio are some friends and relatives of the Toastmaster organization. The first person I'd like to introduce, to my immediate left, your right, is Adrienne Maurer. She is a DTM. She's been with the organization 19 years. She belongs to the Wall Street Speakeasies, where she started her Toastmaster experience, and now she also belongs to the Advanced Club. And later on, you're going to find out exactly what she is. Next to her is Berniece Wilkins, who is also a DTM and a member of the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters, and a past Division B governor. They used to be governors, and now they are directors. And did I say governor or director for you?
I was actually both. I was a governor and a director.
Really? Well, that's pretty cool. There's not very many people who can say that. And then the other person that we have here on the studio tonight is a young man that joined Anthony Wayne about a year ago, and his name is Ben Wilkins. He is my grandson, and I'm very glad to have him here and be part of the show. And tonight, as I said, we're going to talk about this new Pathways project. When it was beginning to be rolled out, it was a couple of years ago, and we here in District 11 and Region 5 have been hearing about it for year after year. It's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And finally, February 13th, 2018, it actually happened. And it's really cool that you're here tonight to share the information with us about it, because Adrienne Maurer is a Pathways guide. And tonight her project is called Pathways Learning Experience. So she's going to take over the program now and listen to what she has to say. Adrienne, please.
Thank you, Dave.
Whatsoever.
I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and talk to you today about Pathways. Pathways is the biggest change in the Toastmasters Education and Leadership Program in 40 years. It's something that they have been working on for the last several years, and I think it's going to be a real boost to the Toastmasters experience. Rather than listen to me talk about Toastmasters and Pathways, I thought you would like to hear from those who have already been through the Pathways experience to tell us a little bit about what they went through.
What I like best about Pathways is the fact that it's much more customized to what you may want to get out of Toastmasters, what your goals are.
It's basically Toastmasters updated.
The base camp is like having a personal coach. It guides you through the journey of Pathways and tells you the next steps.
One of the things I liked about Base Camp is that I can tell where I am in my journey and continue at the next step. I know exactly where I am.
I've used it on a computer, I've used it on a tablet, I've used it on a phone.
It's really cool that we're able to go on to Basecamp and take a quiz that determines what path best suits our needs.
One of the most surprising things about the assessment is that it gave me more awareness about what exactly I was looking for.
The questions were very introspective.
And the assessment was very intuitive.
Taking the assessment helped me really put a finger on my goals.
These paths are going to aid me in a more specific way than the previous programs did.
The path that I chose really gave me the step-to-step roadmap into achieving my goals.
There are 10 different paths. It's amazing how much opportunity there is for the future.
Pathways has led me to a whole new level.
I'm really appreciative that Toastmasters has this new, exciting format. After decades of having an old format, we are now up to date and we can determine which path best suits the individual.
I'm very excited about the introduction of Pathways. As I stated before, it's the biggest change in the program in 40 years. And if you think about how you learned 40 years ago and what educational resources were available to you 40 years ago, it's a pretty substantial change. Ralph Smedley is the founder of Toastmasters. It was his belief that communication was the foundation for each of us to fulfill our individual potential and coexist with others. He knew that the world needed strong communicators and effective leaders, and he was convinced that people could unearth abilities they never knew they had and build on those abilities by supporting one another and learning from each other. It all began with the basic training manual, which evolved into the program we use today, the Competent Communication Manual, the Competent Leadership Manual, 15 advanced manuals, and even manuals for youth. But how we learn and what we want to learn has changed since the CC and CL were developed. We want to learn in a structured process that allows us to build our skills progressively. We want to build competencies that allow us to use our skills in a variety of circumstances, in our personal relationships, careers, and community. And most importantly, our time is limited. We're busier than ever. So we want to customize our experience to learn exactly what we need, not a generic program that offers limited skills. And we want to enjoy the learning process. Mr. Smedley knew this too. In fact, he said, the simple fact is we grow or learn or work better when we enjoy what we are doing. And this is essentially the secret of success in Toastmasters. Our meetings are made enjoyable by a fine, helpful fellowship in a pleasant social atmosphere with activities carefully planned to give us profits in moments of enjoyment. In 2010, the Board of Directors directed World Headquarters to refresh the education program, to modernize the communication track, and to renew our focus on leadership. They set out to create a new experience that offered high value and high enjoyment, paired with the board's vision to create an education program that customizes your learning experience to your needs, whether they include public speaking, interpersonal communication, management, or strategic leadership. It offers flexibility in how you experience the program, either online or in print. Expands the resources available, tips, tools, and even videos to model the skills you build. Build competencies that are translatable to real-world situations. And receive and give meaningful and effective evaluations. The result is the Pathways learning experience. You decide what skills you want to build and the pace you want to follow. You decide if you want to use electronic materials or have a professionally printed manual. You decide what videos to watch, what resources you want to keep. You decide how to apply these skills to your career, your community, or your family. It gives you more access than ever before.
Welcome to the Toastmasters Pathways learning experience, an exciting, flexible, and interactive way to develop your skills and help others in your club develop theirs. Building on Dr. Smedley's original vision and Toastmasters' core competencies, Pathways upholds the club experience while offering new, revitalized educational content that helps you learn communication and leadership skills that address real-world scenarios. Pathways expands on the current education and leadership tracks by offering more than 300 competencies across 59 projects. These projects are divided into 10 specialized learning paths that allow you to tailor your experience to fit your needs and your pace. All of this content is available online, allowing you to learn anytime, anywhere, from your computer, laptop, or tablet through Basecamp. Basecamp is the place where you'll find all of the materials for your learning experience, along with tools for your journey. In Basecamp, you'll be able to share feedback with fellow club members, view badges you've earned, access and save digital speech evaluations, and more. When you first begin Pathways, you'll take an online assessment that will recommend the path that's right for you. You'll be able to access your path from your education transcript in Basecamp, where you can view and complete projects. New elective projects, such as write a compelling blog and manage projects successfully, allow you to tailor your learning to meet your interests. Projects in Basecamp include a variety of interactive elements, including questionnaires, quizzes, menus, and expandable content. Educational videos model skills and provide demonstrations of the concepts you are learning. For example, Prepare for an Interview shows effective and ineffective interview techniques. Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring demonstrates the difference between coaching and mentoring. And Manage Online Meetings provides the best practices and strategies for holding a webinar or another type of online meeting. As you can see, Pathways represents an exciting paradigm shift that brings with it many new learning opportunities. What's more, Pathways will feel familiar to you because it maintains the things you love about Toastmasters, including your club experience. Pathways is coming to your club soon. Visit toastmasters.org/pathways to learn more.
Pathways is dynamic. Whether you've earned your CC, CL, DTM, or anything in between, I promise there's a path for you. The new program leverages the strength of our traditional program, but gives you much more. More in-depth skill building, more flexibility, more resources, and more opportunities to learn, grow, and thrive. To build Pathways, we began by analyzing the current program. We considered what was taught, how it was taught, what skills and competencies you gain, and what was missing. And then we set about to build the foundation. There are 5 core competencies in the traditional Toastmasters program: public speaking, interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, management, and confidence. This became the objective of learning in Pathways. Staff then built a structure underneath the core competencies by adding related skills and sub-competencies. In the traditional program, you can build up to 68 different competencies. In Pathways, there are more than 280 that you can build and leverage. Those skills and sub-competencies were organized by complexity, degree of difficulty, creating paths to learning. The result is 10 unique paths. Each path focuses on 1, 2, or 3 of the core competencies, as you can see in this chart. All of the paths offer public speaking as one of the competencies. The rest of the paths offer some aspect of leadership, with the exception of presentation mastery. And what they've done with Toastmasters, with the new program, is they've taken the best of the leadership opportunities and merged it with the best of the communication opportunities to create paths to learning together. When you take a path, you work through 5 different levels, and each level increases in complexity, so you build skills along the way. This is one of the greatest differences between the traditional program and Pathways. In the traditional program, when you complete your Competent Communicator, then you receive 2 advanced manuals. And you could take an advanced manual on storytelling and you could take an advanced manual on leadership. They don't really fit with each other. You're getting opportunities to give more speeches, but they're not building on what you just completed. Pathways is a little different in that what you learned builds on each other as you move up the levels. There are 59 total projects in Pathways, more to be created after the rollout is completed. All of the projects and resources will be available online in English, along with 8 other official Toastmasters languages. Recognition is always important in the Toastmasters experience, and it's no different in Pathways. In the new program, you'll receive recognition more frequently, and online members can recognize each other. As you can see from the top row, there are 5 badges that equate to each of the levels in a path. So you receive a badge as you complete a level. The badges along the side are ones that you can give to each other. Let's say you had someone give you an evaluation on a speech, and it was the absolute best evaluation you've ever received. You can go online into Pathways, and you can award that person a badge for doing something outstanding. So it's a great way for you to bond with your members and to give each other recognition when you do something noteworthy. You also receive a certificate as you complete a path that shows your mastery in that particular path. What I like about the term mastery and proficiency is that this is something that's more understandable by someone outside of Toastmasters. If I was to put on my resume or my profile that I have a DTM in Toastmasters, unless you are in the Toastmasters program, you probably don't know what that means. You don't know that I've given over 100 speeches and I've taken on leadership opportunities. All you know is that I'm in Toastmasters. But if I tell you that I have a proficiency in strategic leadership, that's a little bit more recognizable to anyone, whether you're in Toastmasters or not. And I think that's one of the great benefits of the new Pathways program, is giving you recognition outside of Toastmasters. One of the biggest changes in the Pathways program is in the area of evaluations. You still give and receive verbal evaluations and written evaluations in your club meetings, but the way it's done is more standardized than what you have today. Sometimes we get ineffective evaluations. Maybe it's too positive and you don't have any opportunities for improvement. Or it could be negative, or it could be there's no substance at all. What they've done in Pathways is to standardize the way evaluations are done so that everyone who gives an evaluation does it consistently. The first page of the evaluation form shows you the purpose of the project, similar to what we have today in our communication manuals. So the person who's giving the evaluation for your project has a general idea of what you're hoping to accomplish by the project. There's also space for comments. The second page of the evaluation form gives you some criteria, and you're going to assign a numeric value based on how that person completed that criteria. Again, a place for comments, similar to what we have today in the communication manuals. The third page of the evaluation guide tells you how to judge those different criteria. So for example, this one is for the icebreaker, and it has all the traditional speech habits, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures. And what's nice about the new evaluation guide is it gives you specific guidelines of how you can rate that person and how you would assign them a 1 versus a 5. This is much more than what we've had in the past. In the past, it's been up to the person that's giving the evaluation with not a lot of guidelines. There's also a new program in Pathways with mentoring. Mentorship is an important part of the Toastmasters experience. Many of us have benefited from being mentored or mentoring others. The Pathways Mentor Program is a structured program that will help you identify when you are ready to be a mentor and understand best practices for mentoring. You'll be able to enroll in this program once you have completed level 2 of your path, and there is no extra charge. There are 4 projects in the program, including Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring. After you complete all the projects in the Pathways Mentor program, as well as 1 full path in Pathways, then you are designated a Pathways Mentor. Every club should have someone who is designated as a Pathways Mentor that you can help others when you have new members or when you have at-risk members that need to have extra help. And it will certainly take time before you have anyone in your club that's designated a Pathways Mentor, because you do have to complete the projects and you have to complete a path. Until that time that you have Pathways Mentors in your club, you should continue to use whatever mentoring program you have in place. Maybe you assign a mentor as soon as you have a new member. That's a pretty typical mentoring process. Maybe you have someone who's assigned to your at-risk members, someone who maybe hasn't come to a meeting for a while or hasn't given speeches. Those are the people that you want to pay extra attention to. Whatever you use in your club today for your mentoring program, you do want to continue that until you have official Pathways Mentors in your program. Getting started with Pathways is as easy as the email that all members in our area should have received today. As soon as our region is live, which happened today at about 3 o'clock, you'll get an email from Toastmasters International with a link that says Begin Your Journey, and it'll take you right to the Pathways page. From the Pathways page, you can look at the navigator, continue on to your Pathways assessment, or log into Basecamp to start your path. The navigator is a new manual you'll use again and again, whether you're a brand new member or you've been in Toastmasters for a long time. In the navigator, it walks you through all of the meeting roles in detail and what they do. It talks to you about the club officers and what they do. And most importantly, it helps you to navigate through the Pathways website. This is new to all of us. None of us have been experienced in using Basecamp and Pathways. So the navigator will be something everybody will be able to use. Once you get into Basecamp, then you have to decide if you want to do online or you want to do print. If you want to do online, then there are certain projects you'll complete online. If you want to do print, you can get a printed copy of the path that you choose. You have the option to print from inside of online if you want to. You can print your entire project. If you decide that you want to be a print-only member, then you would pay an additional $25 for the printed copy. All members who were members at the time of the rollout will receive 1 free path. If you decide you want to do print, it is an additional $25. There are 5 paths available to print members and 10 paths available to the online members. If you decide that you want to do online, then you will take an assessment. The assessment walks you through a number of questions. It asks you about your interests. It asks you about things that you feel comfortable with. And it walks you through the process of trying to figure out which one of those 10 paths would be best for you and for your goals. Once you complete the assessment, then you are presented with 3 options, 3 of the paths that best fit the answers to the assessment. At this time, you can select one of the 3 that you've been given. You can pick a different one, or you can even take the assessment over again. Maybe you answered some of the questions differently than you expected. You can certainly take the assessment over again as many times as you want until you come up with a path that you think is right for you and for your goals. If you decide not to take one of the recommended paths, you can always scroll down on the page and you'll get a full description of each of the other paths that will help you make your decision. Once you have selected your path, then you will start your experience in Basecamp. Now, you don't have to start Pathways immediately. You have many options. Now that Pathways has rolled out, you can continue to work in the traditional program. Let's say you've gotten 8 speeches completed in your Competent Communicator and you want to finish those last 2. You can certainly do that and delay starting Pathways until later. Whatever it is that you want to finish in the traditional program, you have until about May of 2020 to finish the traditional program. So you can keep on working that up until that time. You can start Pathways right away if you'd like. You can work in Pathways only. You can work both in Pathways and in the traditional program at the same time. If you choose to do that, you have lots of options. There's no expiration for that free path that you receive at time of rollout. So if you decide to continue working in the traditional program for the next year, and then you start on Pathways after that, you're certainly allowed to do that. There's no rush to starting that new path. I will recommend, however, that if you have someone in your club, you need to have someone in your club start Pathways right away. All members who join your club after the rollout, which is today, they will be a Pathways member only. Members who were in your club prior to the rollout are in the traditional program and can also do Pathways. But if you have a brand new member that starts tomorrow, they will be Pathways only. And it would be helpful if there was somebody in your club that was going through the Pathways experience so that that new member has someone that they can talk to and help them through the website. Once you have decided how you're going to start your path, then everyone in your club it'll be a hybrid for a while. You may have some people in the traditional program, you have some people in Pathways. Now you want to decide, how is this going to impact my club meeting? And you'll be happy to know that this changes nothing about the club meeting. You'll still give speeches, you'll still do table topics, you'll still have 5 to 7 minute speeches. You'll still have the same meeting roles that you have today. However you decide to set up your agenda, you will still do that exactly the same as you've been doing in the past. What's different with Pathways is the traditional meeting roles that you have today, you'll have a little bit extra resources available to you online if you choose to use it. The meetings are the heart of the Toastmasters program, and we want to make sure that you understand that does not change. Toastmasters requires us to work towards being distinguished clubs, and there are 6 educational goals that we work towards each year. Since I mentioned that we will be in hybrid mode for a while, you will have some people in your club in Pathways, some people in the traditional program. Those 6 educational goals that every club works towards will be a little bit different under this hybrid program. When you want to work on those educational goals, you have the option of using some of the traditional goals, some Pathways, or a combination of the 2 for the next 2 years. So you have lots of options for continuing on towards being distinguished clubs. You also have a number of resources available to you as we all learn our way through Pathways. The district leadership team includes the district officers and the program quality director, who is the Pathways expert for our district. We also have a chief ambassador who's responsible for all Pathways activities for the district, and it happens to be Marlene Purdy, who lives in Fort Wayne. Every club also has an ambassador who has been contacting your club and visiting for the last year. And each club has a Pathways guide. Myself, I have 13 clubs that I am helping. I visited those clubs and I gave the same presentation to each one of those clubs. We are all the resources available to the clubs. We don't want anybody to go a long time without having their questions answered. So we are always available whenever there's questions. As we started the process with the clubs, each club received a packet. And in the packet, was a number of resources that you will be able to use with your club. I mentioned that there's the Navigator online that helps you with making your way through the Toastmasters website. In the packet that every club received is a copy of the Navigator in print. In the packet, there is also a flash drive that has on it a number of resources, including a copy of the Navigator. If you have members who would like a copy of the Navigator, you can print it for them off of this flash drive. The packet also includes a number of Pathways pins that the club can give to whomever they choose. Maybe they want to give it to the first person who launched in Pathways, or maybe they want to give it to someone who's been particularly helpful with the club getting their way through Pathways. There are other helpful hints inside of Basecamp. The first time you log on to Basecamp, you will be given a guided tour, an opportunity to take a tour of Basecamp, to walk you through how to get through Basecamp. How do you start the assessment? How do you find your path? How do you launch your learning experience? The only requirement for using Basecamp is to have a computer, any browser, and you have to have something turned off called pop-ups. Once you log into the Toastmasters website for the first time, you can click on a check compatibility button and it will tell you if you need to turn off pop-ups. That's the only requirement for using Basecamp. You can also use Basecamp from other devices, from mobile devices. When I was going through the training to be a Pathways guide, which I had to go through inside of Basecamp, I did the entire training from my tablet in the car on the way back from vacation. So it's very easy to use on more than just your laptop. Continued support comes in the form of myself. All of the guides are responsible for a number of clubs, and we have weekly conference calls with the Vice President of Education of all of the clubs that we are responsible for. This is your opportunity to get your questions answered. All of the clubs that I will be working with will be able to send in questions to me, and I will try to get them answered in the weekly calls. We also go through a little bit of information about what happens with the Vice President of Education. How does Pathways change the duties of that person? We'll talk a little bit about what happens with a print member. How do you manage the projects for a member that's using print? So we'll be going through a lot of those different topics over the next couple of months. I will be doing these conference calls until around the end of May. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for the clubs to get their questions answered as soon as they possibly can. I now have a number of questions that have come to me over the last month. I've given this same presentation 14 times. This will be number 15. And each time I give the presentation, I receive questions from the audience. And these are probably questions that you have. The first question: if a member chooses to pay for the printed version of the path, do they get access to any of the resources online, or do they only get to use the printed path? And the answer is they do get access to the information on Basecamp. There are tutorials and resources. There are videos that you can watch that will show you some of the skills that you want to model. You have access to the Navigator. All that information is available to a member, whether they do print or online. So I think that's great news. One of the most often asked questions is in the area of evaluations. In the traditional program, when you are giving a speech, you'll have a book, and in your book on a page will be an evaluation page, and you'll hand that over to your evaluator and they'll fill it out and give it back to you. In Pathways, you have many options how to do the evaluations. You can go into Basecamp and you can print a copy of the evaluation guide, take it to your club, hand it to your evaluator. They can fill it out, give it back to you. You can stick it in a folder and be done with it. You don't have to do anything else with that printed copy. Or you can take that filled out evaluation guide, you can scan it, and you can save it to your profile in Basecamp. And it's for you only. No one else has to see it. It's just for you. Another option, you can email the evaluation guide. You can get it from Basecamp. You can email it to the person who's going to be doing your evaluation. They can fill it out electronically and email it back to you. And then you can save it in your profile. So you have lots of options for how you will continue to do evaluations under the new program. And speaking of evaluations, another question I had was, if I'm not in Pathways, can I still do an evaluation for someone who's in Pathways? And the answer is yes. Evaluations are no different. Whether you're doing a Pathways project or you're doing a project in the traditional program, you still can have anyone do your evaluation. Now, because this is all new to everyone, you would want to give your evaluation guide to that person ahead of time so they have a chance to read it and see the purpose of the project. With the projects that we use today, we've all seen them a number of times, so we know pretty much what the guidelines are. With Pathways, everything would be new, so it would be helpful for the person who's doing your evaluation to get a copy of that guide ahead of time. Another question has to do with club meeting roles. In the traditional program, you can get credit for being a Toastmaster in the Competent Leader. And I think you can get credit about 5 different times. And that's the same for some of the other meeting roles. You can get credit for different things in that Competent Leader manual. And do you still get credit for performing meeting roles in Pathways? And the answer is yes, kind of. You still get credit for doing a meeting role, but just once. So you don't have to keep track of the 5 different times that you've been a Toastmaster. You only have to keep track of it one time when it comes up in your path. So for example, in level 2, you are asked to be a table topics moderator. So once you get to level 2 and you get to that part of that project, you tell your Vice President of Education who's putting together the agenda, I'd like to be table topics moderator at the next meeting, and then you write that down with the date. And that's all. You don't have to do it again. So you still get credit for meeting roles. You just don't have to get credit every single time you take on a meeting role, which I think is, I think it'll make it a little easier for putting together agendas. How does this change the duties of the Vice President of Education? That's a big one. The Vice President of Education role is a large task to begin with. That person is responsible for keeping track of what the members are doing towards their goals. They're responsible for entering awards into Toastmasters when someone completes a certification. They're also responsible for making sure that we have people that are working towards goals so that when the area director comes and asks about what our goals are, they have the answers. That's a big job. Today, when someone completes a manual, let's say they completed their competent communicator with 10 speeches, they give it to the Vice President of Education, who goes into the Toastmasters website, and then they have to type in all 10 of the speeches, title and date, for all 10, and then submit. Going forward in Pathways, we are all going to take on some of those roles. As someone completes a project in Pathways, that person goes into Basecamp, into their own profile, and writes down, I completed this project on this date, this title. So they're doing that as they go along. When that person completes a level and they're ready for the Vice President of Education to certify, all the information's already in the website. So the Vice President of Education doesn't have to go back and re-enter all that information. They do have to enter that kind of information for a print member. And it's no more work than what they're doing today. So they'd have to enter the dates of all the projects that that print member was doing. So in a way, Pathways has made it a lot easier for the Vice President of Education's duties. Finally, how do we encourage members to join Pathways and take on Pathways? And I've heard this question a number of times, and I think the question is the wrong way of stating it. I think what we need to say is, what are the things that we can do in our club to show the benefits of Pathways and to show what it's doing for us? When someone is ready to go into Pathways, it should be their choice. We don't want to ever force anyone to go into something that they're not ready for. So my take on that is to lead by example. And I plan on, in my home club, each meeting, I will want to spend a couple of minutes, whatever time we have available, and I will talk about, what did I do in Pathways this week? I went in and I did the assessment. I picked my path. I did this. And just to help people understand what I went through and what are the things that I did, so that when they get ready to start, it's not quite so scary for them. So lead by example, show your members how easy it is and how much you're enjoying it. And be honest. If there are things that you wish were a little bit different, that's okay. It's a new system, and we fully expect that some things will be different down the road. Those are all the questions that I have collected over the last couple of months. I do have some other resources for anyone who chooses to write this down. There are a couple of websites that I found to be specifically helpful in Pathways. These are from people who rolled out Pathways a year ago and have shared their experiences. The first one is from a lady in England. Her name is Julie, and her last name begins with a K, and I don't recall her last name. She has been blogging ever since she started on Pathways. And she's been talking about her experiences when she went through the assessment, when she finished her first path. And what I like about her blogs is she's brutally honest. If there's something that she likes, she says so. If there's something she wished was different, she says so. So I think she's a really good resource to see how someone has gone through the Pathways experience. The other website, and her blog is at pathwaysexperience.blogspot.com. Pathways Experience, all one word, .blogspot.com. The other website that has a wonderful set of resources is Cream City. And I don't recall where they are, but they've been on Pathways for a while, and they have a number of resources that I have borrowed and I have shared with others because they're so wonderful. The website is Cream City, CREAM City, .toastmastersclubs.org. creamcity.toastmastersclubs.org. And I would recommend all of you to go out and check out their website to see what they have available in Pathways. That concludes my set of questions. I'm wondering if our members have any questions for me. Anything that you would like to know? Yes.
What happens to youth leadership and speechcraft? How do we conduct that?
Those are incorporated in Pathways.
Are they?
Yes. So you can continue to do youth leadership, and speechcraft is actually one of the requirements for DTM. So today it's something that's offered. Going forward for DTM, you have to complete 2 paths. You have to have served in district leadership, just like today. You need to be a mentor or a coach of a club. And then you also need to either be a sponsor or conduct youth leadership, or conduct speechcraft.
So if there was nobody that was qualified, if there's no one that has done any of the pathway program yet, there's no way we can conduct a speechcraft.
You can.
If we wanted to start one up to try to encourage new members, nobody would be available to do it.
You can do that. Anything that you complete that you have not applied to an award already, you can carry forward into Pathways. So, for example, I was a district leader 3 times. And when I used one of my district leadership roles for my DTM, I still have 2 left. Even though they are 2 years old, I can still carry that forward into Pathways, and I can apply that towards, if I decide that I want to get another DTM, I can apply that in Pathways. So if you decided to start a speechcraft now, even though you haven't started a path yet, you can save that speechcraft. If you don't apply it to an award and traditional program, you can use it in Pathways.
As a Pathways,
okay.
Do you have any questions?
I have quite a few.
Oh my goodness, he has a whole page.
I think probably the most important question I have is Pathways optional?
It is optional for now.
For now.
Until the rollout in, I think May is when the last region is supposed to roll out. So 2 years after that, the traditional program will still be available. You'll still be able to work in the manuals. And then once that is completed, then all members will be in Pathways.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Yes.
You talked about badges. Are they actual badges, or is it just something that's recorded?
It's electronic.
It's
at this
electronic.
point.
So you don't have anything to wear to show the world, oh, what's that badge? Oh, it's Toastmasters, I earned that. And then get a discussion going about Toastmasters, being able to see an actual. Of course, we can still have that badge, can't we?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that brings up a good point. Once you receive your DTM, you will always be a DTM. Even if you start over in Pathways, we all start over at the beginning. If you're a DTM, you will always be that. You don't lose that certification.
Okay.
Well, so will existing Toastmasters have to start from square one with Pathways, like right back at the icebreaker? And do we lose any previous achievements?
If you are, let's say you have a CC.
Which I do.
Which you do. Once you start in Pathways, until you reach that first level, you will still be considered a CC.
Okay.
Once you reach that first level, then your designation changes to the Pathways designation.
So, for example, right now I'm working on my second project in my advanced manual. If I were to start Pathways right now, do I have to restart from square one?
Once you start in Pathways, everybody starts over at the beginning.
Okay.
So everybody
So
does
I'd have
their
to restart
icebreaker
my
again.
advanced manual.
But your advanced manual, if you want to keep on going in that advanced manual, you can keep working in that book.
Okay, but how would that apply towards my next achievement in Pathways?
That does not apply in Pathways.
So I just lose that achievement.
Correct.
So it's a waste of time.
Unless you have a goal in the traditional program, maybe you want to get to the next advanced level, you can work on that. You can keep on working in the traditional. But if you don't have something specific that you want to work towards in the traditional program, then you can start in Pathways and then work your way up there.
How is the traditional program and Pathways separate then? So can I still achieve a DTM through the traditional program without Pathways?
You can.
But only before Pathways becomes a requirement?
Correct.
Which is 2 years from now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead, and then I'll ask my second most important question then.
In the past, an evaluation has been one section of a project in a manual or an advanced manual. It sounds like now an evaluation is going to be like 2 or 3 pages long. Is that correct?
It's correct, and it's, if you were to think about how a traditional, I have a copy of the icebreaker evaluation. So in a traditional evaluation, you've got a few pages of description of what the project is, and then you've got that one pager that has everything on that one pager. And now we have some of the information that's in the description is in the evaluation guide, So you have a place to put in some general comments, and then really the meat of it is the form that has all the guidelines on it.
Okay,
And then that third page is just it's to help you figure out how do I evaluate.
There are these 10 things that we need to go through. Are they sequential in hardness or difficulty? Are they all equally the same? Or, for example, is there one that would be like starting a basic Toastmaster program? Is there one that would be like an entry level thing that people would want?
I would say if you are focusing on communication only, you could do the presentation mastery. That's the one that includes communication and presentation, but not really a leadership aspect. And the rest of them have some kind of a leadership aspect.
Is that one of the projects, presentation mastery?
That's one of the paths.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we receive a copy of the 10 pathways and what all is included in each one?
I would be more than happy to give you a copy of this. I happen to have a 2-pager. I thought this was excellent, and I borrowed it from the Cream City Toastmasters website because someone put it together, and I thought it was excellent. What it has is each of the 10 paths, and then it shows the 5 different levels, what kinds of projects are in each of the levels, and so you can see that at each level you have certain projects that are required, and then you also have electives. So you can, one person that's completing a path might look different than another person completing the same path because their project's a little different.
If they're not giving speeches, what are some of the other requirements or some of the other duties that are part of that particular module or block?
Some of them are performing meeting roles. So there's one of the electives in level 3 is active listening. So in level 3, the active listening project is you being a speech evaluator or a grammarian, something that requires you to listen.
I see. Okay. So it's using the same existing duties that we have now.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's like taking the parts of the competent leadership and the parts of the competent communicator and putting them together and applying that throughout the levels. Yes.
So with the online piece, so if we choose not to be the print only, we do online, how do we get our speech evaluations?
You have the option to have someone, you can email it to the person that's doing the evaluation, they can email it back to you, and then you can save it in Basecamp. There's actually also, and I just found this morning, there's a page on the main Basecamp page that has all of the evaluations of all the projects electronically. So if you were to be evaluating someone and they'd say, I'm going to be doing storytelling tomorrow, can you do my evaluation? That person can go to the website and pull down the evaluation guide for storytelling.
Oh.
So everybody has access to all the evaluations.
We won't need a general evaluator anymore, will we?
No, you'll still need a general evaluator.
You will? Because usually they appoint the evaluators.
You can still do that. You just need to know, and like I said, we're all learning these together. These are all going to be new. It would be helpful if the person who's doing the evaluation had it ahead of time so they could read it.
And we never know ahead of time.
No.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think probably the biggest question that I had about all of this, I noticed with one of the video things you had pulled up, it seems to me that the paths are kind of chosen for you and that it gives you the directive instead of allowing me to, I want to start here and then go here. So instead of allowing an individual to work at their own pace and in their own order, and I'm just wondering what benefit does that have to a member, especially a new member, if they're not allowed to choose their own method and their own order and everything, and Pathways is doing it for them, how is that beneficial?
Because in the Pathways program, you are building skills based on what you've learned in the past. So instead of learning things in
Yes,
different
we-
order, it builds on each other.
Okay, so it starts at step one, and step two builds off of step one, and
Mhm.
three builds off of two. Okay, which
Yep.
is understandable. But I'm just wondering, isn't that still kind of the same thing as if I start at the icebreaker and then I go on to project two? Is project two not building off of the icebreaker?
Certainly.
So
Absolutely.
so why change it? What's the benefit?
They're giving you opportunities to learn different things, more real-world skills than what the traditional program has.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Adrienne, and we're going to have to wrap this up. We're nearly out of time, but let's give her a nice hand. It's nice to know that you'll be available, that we can contact you if we have any questions about what you're doing. Do you have any more questions, Berniece? Or Ben, real quickly, do you have a question?
No.
Comments?
There's probably not time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
The thing is, we're going to just have to start and find out what we're doing. When we get this free first module, we can download that, print it in our own printer at home?
You can,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Adrienne, for coming tonight. This has been really exciting, and I want to thank Berniece for being here. Ben, thank you for coming tonight. You
Always.
helped with the program. You certainly do it very well. It's a very polished presentation.
Thank you.
After 15, 16 times, it probably should be. I also need to thank Dennis Osborne and Norm Compton for putting this together tonight. We had some technical issues, but these guys are wizards, and they can really put it together. I also want to thank Allen County Library and Fort Wayne Access for allowing us to do this show. If you want to do a TV show, call down here at the library and ask for Norm or anybody at the desk, and they will explain to you how you can come and do your own TV show. And because you're a citizen of Allen County, it's absolutely free. So we make good use of it, and I hope you could too. So until next month, this is Dave Wilkins for the Speakers and Leaders Hour saying thanks to all of you, and remember, may all your meetings be fair and productive, and for better listening, thinking, and speaking, it's all Toastmasters. Good night. Good night, everybody.